MH Holdings, the City of Joburg, Alex Core, the Free State Asbestos and Housing Projects, and Eskom. The final report will be handed over on the 15th of June. Advocate Kevin Malunga is the former Deputy Public Protector, currently the head of law school at Regenesis Business School. He joins us now to look at the report. A very good morning to you, Advocate, and thanks for making the time.
Good morning, Ms. Chauk, and to the viewers.
I imagine it's not lost on us that we're both talking on Workers' Day, so I suppose good opportunity to say happy holiday, even though we are working.
Yeah, indeed.
Advocate, whenever we have analysis of the tranches of the report, I refer back to the Genesis, which was the Public Protector's report on the state of capture from which the Commission originated. What are your thoughts on the Commission's reports thus far, and have they stayed on the purpose?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you recall, when we made this finding, I think it was 2016, 17, thereabout. No, it's actually before that, 2015. That this is a really big elephant that I think that institution could not manage on its own. It's a vindication to say it was correct to have a commission led by a very capable person who's now been appointed Chief Justice of the country to dig into this and really find out what happened. Because a lot of the things I can assure you that are being found, we always used to get whistleblowers bringing information, saying, I know this, I know that, I know that. But you see, in law, that's not enough. You can't just say to somebody, I heard that Desiree Chauke has R1 million in her briefcase. I'm sure you'd love that, but that's not how it works. So you really have to have proper processes, legal processes, and the Commissions Act allows for a commission to be created under the laws of South Africa to actually dig into this, and I think it's been a vindication, if I can put it that way, of that decision by then Advocate Madonsela to write a report that said, let's have a commission, let's find out what happened.
You're speaking to the need to have proper and credible evidence in order to effect the law. Eskom announced on Friday that it will be engaging internal and external legal practitioners in an effort to respond to and also respond to the recommendations of the report. How difficult a job is it going to be to prosecute?
Extremely difficult. And I think what I just want to clarify, and people don't like it when I say it, but I have to remind people that even the people who are accused of things, accused of whatever infractions or violations of the law, they also have rights in terms of the laws of South Africa. So it's going to be very difficult, but this is a victory for the rule of law. So the prosecution, the National Prosecuting Authority has an opportunity right now to show its mettle, to say, people have been accusing them of being incompetent, of being useless for a very long time. So now this is their chance to say, hey, look, we can actually do something. I think one thing that is really clear is that South Africa had been Gupta'd hard, so I think it's really something that now being Gupta'd is not enough. You have to prove in terms of forensic evidence to say, look, indeed we were Gupta'd and this is how we were Gupta'd. So it's very critical that there is forensic proof of what happened. And I think the Commission has done a lot of hard work, but the prosecutors will have to show that this actually happened. They will have to follow the money trail. They will have to find the fingerprints, as it were. In other words, the proof of that this actually happened. And I see that there's already quite a lot of denials and howling and so forth. But that's not how the law works. The law works in terms of evidence. It's an evidentiary process. You've got to have evidence. You've got to have, otherwise nothing. Even if someone comes dripping in blood in a police station and there's been a murder next door, if you cannot link that person to that murder, you have to acquit them. You have to let them go. It's the same in this particular scenario. I personally, as a lawyer myself and someone who's done a lot of investigations and forensics, it shouldn't be difficult to find wrongdoing in this regard. Let's say, for example, if I will take the, I think it's part 1 or part 2 of the report, the one that deals with the asbestos housing project in the Free State. You just have to simply say where is the the roofing that was built for the poor, and chances are you are not going to find anything. The same with the housing, the 1 billion housing project. So there are some low-hanging fruit which I think the prosecuting authorities are going to have an easier ride on. ESCOM might be a bit more difficult, but I think most of ESCOM's challenges are legacy issues, the current ones. It actually is an affirmation that a lot of the challenges that are there, that are governance issues, your load shedding and other mismanagement, are a result of that particular view. So I really think that it's possible that you are going to have prosecutions and you are going to have successful prosecutions, but it's also about the quality of the material that the prosecutors put before the court, because sometimes prosecutors sleep on the job and they just put half-baked papers on before judges, and these are thrown out. So this is a lesson for the NPA in this case.
Let's talk more about that, Advocate. You speaking about the difficulty going forward, and organizations such as AfriForum have started private prosecution units. We've seen them really dig into and get involved in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case. Are we going to see such coming up a lot as complaints start to pile up about the National Prosecuting Authority not doing its work?
I suppose so, but that's not the ideal. Remember, these institutions such as the NPA or and various other law enforcement, the Hawks, and various other law enforcement agencies and units have huge budgets and have hired thousands, hundreds, if not thousands, at a time of people who are supposed to have the requisite expertise. So this is ordinarily a state function. And South Africa is not your, pardon my French, it's not your typical banana republic where things just, don't work. They're supposed to work. That's why there's a constitution, and all these are constitutionally mandated bodies. What is good, though, is obviously that there's an active civil society that is able to keep the government and other people on their toes. I think that, those instances may succeed, but they will definitely run out of steam, because the elephant, as I've said, is very big. So an AfriForum will not be able to conquer all the corruption in South Africa, even though they may try, and all the other civil society linked entities. It's fine, it's their right to do so, but I don't think they'll be able to bite off this particular monster that is huge. The 4 volumes speak to a whole range. You've got you've got your Free State issues, you've got your ESCOM, you've got your City of Joburg, Estina is still coming. It's just too big for a small unit to take on. So it will definitely need the mandated state organs, those which are funded, to actually have competent prosecutions. And I think it's very important that is done. I think the win-win part of this thing is that it shows that South Africa has a rule of law that works. Because in many places, in some countries, if you dare ask these type of questions, you will disappear or you get fired, etc., etc. But it's good that these reports are coming through, and there's the culture of accountability is being reinstilled. But I think it also a test for the politicians, the extent to which they will be able to, use this as a barometer for the country's state of the rule of law, the state of the country's fight against corruption, etc. It's just that it's not just another photo opportunity, more photo opportunities at the union buildings, reports being handed over, and everyone takes pictures and smiles. That's not what this is all about. It's really about ensuring that the rule of law works, that there is accountability, and so forth. I see obviously that those who are allegedly implicated have, obviously taking measures to challenge this, which is also fine. So that's how a rule of law system works, ideally, that you don't preempt anything. And I think when this commission started, and they came to me for advice, and I said, be strong on forensics. Forensics are critical, so that you are not just doing thumbs up. You're actually finding things that are credible, and they will be able to stand muster and to pass constitutional muster and to be able to withstand cross-examination in courts, etc. So there's a lot going on, which I think is good. Of course, the downside, though, is that it shows that the extent to which the country had been captured, a very disgusting level of control by people who are not supposed to be controlling government. And it also affirms that a lot of the people implicated should never be seen anywhere near the corridors of any form of political power, which unfortunately many of them are still in some positions as portfolio committee chairs in parliament, etc., which is disgusting. So, if I give you an example, a country like Singapore, which is one of my favorites when it comes to investigations, if you are found with something like this, you are blacklisted for life. You can't work in the public service, you can't work in the private sector, you are done. So I think it's important that that kind of principle be affirmed. And I think this is also a lesson probably for other African countries, because I think a lot of Africa's problems come from the culture of impunity, that people just do things, and then thankfully Treasury was able to withstand this. In many countries, the Treasury Department is captured. You remember the allegations of Grace Mugabe asking for money for shopping, 100,000, etc., at any given point in time during the time of Robert Mugabe as president of Zimbabwe. And you can't have that in a functional country. And that is where we're going.
Advocate Malunga,
it's important that
I just want to touch on a few things that you mentioned. You spoke about the rule of law, and you spoke about some people who've been implicated howling, and let's just touch a bit on that. And I imagine you're talking about media reports that the Deputy Minister and the President, Zizi Kodwa, was saying he's going nowhere. Nothing's going to be done in terms of what has been said about his reported dodgy dealings with technology solutions company EOH. What exactly are the rights of the people who have been implicated in instances where we're assuming that they are innocent?
Oh yes, I think you are alluding to a constitutional right, Section 34 and a few other rights, a few sections of the Constitution mention that people have a right to have disputes, resolved by a court or other competent tribunal. So I think Mr. Kodwa and all the others, in a way, they are right to say, look, they have their legal rights. So what is in the Zondo Commission report are findings, they are recommendations. So it will take competent bodies such as the NPA, etc., and the courts of the land to make findings. But of course, there's also a test for the president. You don't want a stench of corruption and impropriety to follow you when you are always, speaking on podiums about the fight against corruption.
Yeah.
It becomes hypocrisy.
Advocate Malunga, we have time issues, but I just want to ask you this quickly. The Commission's latest report admonishes former President Jacob Zuma just in terms of what he says. They say he facilitated the Gupta family's hijacking of the country's resources. Considering that the president didn't agree to present himself to the Commission, how far can what comes out of the report about him stand in a court of law?
Look, as I said, I think the evidence can still be there. And as I said, everyone has a right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. And I think one thing that people have to be very cautious about, that we don't get caught up in the sensation of saying, Zuma, guilty. I think we can't do that. That's not how the law works. People have rights. But that said, being hostile to a legal system doesn't exempt you from it. I think that's very important at the end of the day. You cannot say, I don't want to come, I'm not participating, and therefore you are exempt. That's not how it works. That's why we say no one is above the law. And I think his recent incarceration actually shows that no one is above the law. So I personally don't like to focus on Jacob Zuma because he's been over-focused, if I can put it that way. All these various players who were enablers also really need to be held to account. I mean, Jacob Zuma has already gone to jail, as it were. But my point is, it will take a lot of spade work and a lot of speedy work. A silver lining, of course, is the fact that in terms of the asbestos contract, and I think that's the sole matter, the asset forfeiture unit had already done some very delicate footwork there and got an asset forfeiture preservation order I think some 3-4 years ago. So they were able to get some of those cars, etc. In these things, time is of the essence because people spend this money. They don't just sit around, and they spend it lavishly. You see them, flaunting this on Instagram, etc. And this is money that was supposed to be spent to actually empower the poor. Remove dangerous asbestos roofing, etc. But that didn't happen. So you are in a very precarious situation where I think the state definitely was captured, and I think the extent now is to how much, and of course what happens to those who got ill-gotten gains as a result of this particular state capture.
Advocate Malunga.